Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan inside the Birds, and we're getting you closer and closer to the NFL draft. We have a lot of questions, Adam, from listeners, from viewers, from readers. Everybody wants to know about the draft, the prospects, who the Eagles are going to take. So we're going to take this time to answer a lot of those questions to the best of our possibilities. We've gotten a lot of intel. We tend to get more intel the days leading up to the draft. That's why next week, obviously next week on Monday, we'll have our Inside the Birds annual mock draft. You, myself, Andrew DeCecco, and we'll do the NFL mock draft and give us a better idea of where guys are going to go. And we'll continue to have reports on what the Eagles are doing, who they're interested in, and what the league sees in a lot of these guys. I'm getting excited.
I am, and also we want to probably have an update on your hamstring. So many people contacted us. It was really funny, folks. We don't typically talk about personal stuff. Podcasting, a lot of people who do podcasting do, but we try to get to the important stuff first. Every 10 shows we might talk about something that's not Eagles or NFL related.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're listening to us for one of the first times, we talked about Geoff had a hamstring injury. We was coaching softball. It was softball, right? Was it your softball team?
I coached softball. Yeah.
And you decided to, you're getting everybody stretching, you ran. And anyway, so since we opened the show with that and spent some time on it, we had, I got to say, at least 6 people contacted us who 5 were head athletic trainers or athletic trainer. Yeah. Which was cool. It's really interesting.
So listen, this is part of the reason why I love doing this podcast with you is because we have great interaction with our listeners, our viewers, and a lot of them are displaced all around the country. So it's really incredible. There were 3 in particular I want to give a shout out to. There's Dr. Jeremy Cannon, who I believe he's in the Carolinas at some point, but he has family in the South Jersey area. He himself is from PA. He sent us kind of his whole injury recovery chart that he's from notes that he took, but he had some interesting input under what we were talking about with icing and stretching. So thanks to Dr. Jeremy Cannon. I don't know why I said the Carolinas. I thought I read that he's in there. He's in Greenville, North Carolina. And then also Jim Moffitt, who is a physical therapist in the Delaware Valley, somewhere in the Philadelphia area, and also an athletic trainer, Mike Burkett, who's I believe at the University of Penn. So they all reached out to us, Adam, and we were really going down the right path. I mean, the idea of ice, all 3 of them acknowledged the idea of ice being something that is, how much it was emphasized in athletics, as far as once you're done, you got to have ice, you have the ice. Yeah. That they emphasize that the recent research studies that can help you short term, but there are also some downsides to it. It's not as long-term impactful. And in some cases, I think one of them pointed out that if you're constantly icing a muscle group and freezing that muscle group or numbing that muscle group, you could be restricting the growth of that muscle group as well. So I think all 3 of them basically said, look, if you sprain an ankle, you got to use ice because the recovery time will be cut in half on that, because that's a bone or a ligament issue, I guess, with your ankle. It depends on where it is. But for certain things that aren't injuries, just recovery, the ice thing, it seems to be a little bit, old hat, the way it used to be. Like, oh, you got to have, like, you see pitchers or quarterbacks coming out when their entire shoulder is surrounded by like 11 bags of ice and everything like that.
Well, and the elbow, of course, for pitchers. But it's funny, you were talking about this. I just know if I'm going to training camp, but particularly before games, if you get there for warm-ups, I know you've seen this. You'll see one of the athletic trainers or someone from the training staff stretching the players out for the game. Like, if you get there at 11 a.m., if it's for a 1 o'clock Eagles game, if you get there at 10:30, 11:30, you'll see them being stretched. And I never really thought of it until I started getting stretched. Right. Now I know what they're going through, and I know the feeling of get your hamstring stretched. When it's right, you cannot believe how fluid your legs are. You're like, wow, this is like, why wasn't I doing this years ago? I'm an idiot.
Right.
So, if you're trying to come back from an injury, you have a hamstring strain, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
We don't, because you didn't get an MRI. We don't know degree of strain, 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
But
I would definitely guess it's the low end one. I mean, I could.
You got a 1. That's still week to week. That's because you're not an athlete.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, you're right.
It's going to be. It's good. Should be a good 3 weeks. Even if it's a grade 1, because you don't have access to the equipment and the trainers to get you right. Now, if you were going to see a physical therapist, that's a different story. But it's interesting, that the medical science, and as we know, NFL teams have such great data in terms of what it is,
right,
how long it should take, and what the methods are to get them back on the field, the players here. So
yeah, definitely.
So here you go. You now have experienced it.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I say that the few things that I can't do normally are like if I drop something on the ground and have to pick it up, I can't just bend over and pick it up. I have to kind of lower both of my knees down so that my entire body gets like crouched and then grab it, because I just don't have that range of motion or flexibility to be able to touch the ground quickly, like that, or getting out of a car, getting up from a seat that requires that like lower body kind of thrust to get yourself up. All of that, like you can feel the tightness in the back of my leg. And like you said, I'll probably feel that for at least 2 more weeks. So we'll see. We'll see as it goes. But yeah,
be careful. Take it easy, man.
No, well, that's the funny thing. It's like I can't not like I still have all my
responsibilities.
I know.
Understand, but
I know.
It's you don't have to overextend yourself because you don't want to make it worse. And strains you're tearing fibers in your hamstring.
Right.
So the strain is you're either tearing it or stretching fibers.
Right.
So yeah, you don't want to make it work.
No, I definitely don't. So good on that. Good on the stretching, the icing. So really interesting. So I wanted to appreciate all the people that reached out. I knew we would have, and I think it's just really cool that people listen and they're from all around, and they, again, that Dr. Cannon who sent us, a very long, detailed list of notes that he had taken from school. I just really appreciate that. It was really educational, and just always appreciate the interactions. Let's talk about a couple of things. So this week, Adam, our intel with Greg Cosell, really good one on quarterbacks, right? That's going to be out Wednesday morning on the podcast platform, Friday on YouTube. And as we both said, even though we don't see the Eagles taking a quarterback in the first round, and it's not the biggest thing for them this year, you can never just not talk about quarterbacks with the Eagles, because they tell you constantly that they treat that position, both starter and backup, with, they hold it in the highest regard, and you just never know what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to take it in the first. You don't either. But I mean, if they did, it's not like we could ever say, holy cow, that was just coming out of left field, because they've made that clear.
Correct. Look, when they took Jalen Hurts, I think it's actually technically 10 months after they extended Wentz's contract. That's it. Game's over. I don't put anything past them. Okay? Right. As a friend of mine who's worked for an NFL team told me, you don't draft backups to the second round. There had to be more of a reason. And I told him, I was like, look, I hear what you're saying. Eagles want to do something different because of Wentz's injury history. They wanted to be forward thinking. Nobody knew, folks, that Wentz would want to be traded 2 years later. Well, actually, 1 year later. I'm like, that's right. He was traded. He wanted to be traded after the 2020 season. It's just ridiculous after signing an extension 19.
Right.
But that was one of the most bizarre situations, not only in our show in the 5 years, but I've ever heard of. But as the Eagles turn, there's always controversy and interesting storylines that come about. And it's never a dull moment with this football team. We love it.
Never a dull moment. And I thought the great part of the discussion on quarterbacks that people will get to hear is that, and you asked the question, so kudos to you. You asked Greg to really two things that were important. A, define what you're looking for in quarterbacks when you talk about traits. And actually, Greg stopped and said, no, I want to. So credit to Greg for that. He's like, because people say strong arm is a trait, ability to run is a trait, but is that everything? Is that one of the traits that coaches and executives and people who look at, is that what they put most stock in? So Greg really broke down why certain traits are important and how you should put traits into a context specific to a scheme, a coaching staff, everything that goes involved. And then you asked him, Adam, who his influences are as far as watching tape. Cool. And he has had many that he has, been an apprentice to. And I thought that was also a really fascinating part of the discussion.
He tells us there were a couple good stories there. Because Greg gets knocked because he didn't play, though Greg was a great high school athlete. I know, and as I always joke with him, you wouldn't know it by looking at him. He always takes offense to that. That's why I keep saying it, because it bothers him. But he was great at basketball and baseball, all city athlete. But he's a tall guy, 6'4".
Yeah.
So he can, again, he was never a pro athlete, but he played in college, played college basketball. So he knows what it is to be an athlete, and he knows that there are certain things you look for. Whether he was a basketball player, jump shooter, you got to be able to shoot, even though you got to be able to score and shoot. At quarterback, it's great now. If you mentioned on the show with Greg, it's nice to have second reaction plays. There's no question about it. It's hard. You can't really coach it. It's the coach is not on the playing. He's coaching. He sees it. But if it works, it works. You don't want to curb it. You want to point it out. Hey, this was open. Go with, you need to make, you see it and throw it. But during the course of a game, it's real time. If the pocket breaks down, go. Like if you've got room, this is the one issue that I know coaches have worked with Derek Carr said. It would bother them. Like Derek Carr in his day, he still is. He's not old. He might be in his 30s, but he's not old by quarterback standards anymore. He's always been a pretty good athlete. He refuses to run. He literally, there could be 20 yards in front of him, no one around him. He's not Tom Brady. He's not slow-footed like Tom. Tom's great in pocket.
Right.
He just won't run.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Right.
Now you want him to go through progressions. Like with Hurts, he's still one progression reader. But the hope is, and we talked about this on the show, and the one thing that I would back Hurts in, and it's so true, he just has not had the experience of being the same scheme, maybe more than once, like 2 years in a row, maybe once in his career. And this goes back to high school. So we're not making excuses for him, but it'd be nice if he could just be coached by the same coaches. And Greg made a great point in that show that we did, which was, we could have literally done 3 hours. We didn't have that kind of time. Funny, when we were doing the show, I was like, man, I wish we had a round table. I wish we were together.
I know.
Like our Sunday show with Avant.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I would love to have the four of us we should just do a quarterback show before training camp. Just really want to do that because it was just so wonderful. And the great thing is, like, Geoff and I will have subjects we want to talk about. But if you guys have watched these shows with Greg, there's so much we never planned we went into because someone says something, go, oh, what about this?
Right.
So that's what we do in this quarterback show.
There you go. All right. So make sure you're checking out the Intel with Greg Cosell. It's all about quarterbacks in this year's draft. Let's get into some Eagle stuff, Adam. The draft is closing, coming up close. If there's going to be a move that you think the Eagles might make, coming up before the draft, anything that comes to mind to you?
Yeah. So this is Monday. So what are we, 10 days from the draft now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the one thing that they really wanted to do, and, we first reported they had interest in Richie James, and we're told it was either the Giants or the Eagles for Richie James. And he chose to sign with the Giants, which is his decision.
Yes.
But our understanding is they also have interest in Andre Roberts, the veteran returner.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
I love Andre Roberts. Yeah, he's great at that.
I'm sorry?
I said he's a really good, good veteran returner. He's good.
Really good. Like, he's not a receiver. Like, Richie James can play receiver. He had that one monster game 2 years ago.
Right.
But Roberts, who also is a good golfer, I've golfed with him before in a charity event. But he still got it. The Chargers, I'm told, wanted him back, but they didn't want to guarantee any money or very little. So they signed DeAndre Carter, another former Eagle. Might remember him. So, yeah, our understanding is they have interest in Andre Roberts, but he's going to want to get some money. The guy's, he's been to the Pro Bowl before. He's going to want some money. He's a veteran. He's well into his 30s.
Sure.
Still is good. So we'll see where it goes.
You also wonder if at this stage of his career, because he's been in the NFL for a while, as you mentioned, if he's looking at, he knows he's only going to make a certain amount of money as a return specialist. So does he look for a team that gives him the best chance to win a ring, or does he just take the best offer? That you always wonder about guys who've been in the league for that for a
yeah,
while.
no, that's true. Right. Because when you get to a certain age, when you're well into your 30s, it's like, okay, I've made a certain amount of money, and he's done well in his career with money as a returner because he's been one of the best for several years. You have to make a decision. Is it about the ring or the money?
Right.
Or both. You don't want to take an MSB deal, which means minimum salary benefit. He should not take that.
Right.
If that's what's out there, he ain't signing. I mean, I know how veterans think. It's like, you could get this deal in August. Why would you? It's one thing if you're a first-time guy in a free agent. Let's say you're 25 or 26. You may want to just know, because some younger guys are like, hey man, I just want to know where I'm playing. I don't want to wait. Whereas Andre Roberts, you make a fair point. I don't see him signing unless he gets a kind of contract that is at least reasonable.
Right. All right. Interesting stuff. You're right. The Eagles first went after Richie James. They clearly want a little juice in the return game. They may even draft somebody later, day 2, day 3, who's a wide receiver with good return skills. So we'll keep our eyes on that. All right. Also, keep your eyes on our new partner, Devicor. Over the last year, we've all seen what's known as the Great Resignation. It's made it clear that there's no better time to change careers than the present. Devicor is a Philly area family-owned career development company that helps guide hardworking professionals on the path to new and fulfilling careers. Unlike those big companies in the career development space that offer the same cookie cutter advice and services, Devicor's certified career development team is hands-on, passionate, knowledgeable, taking pride in working closely with their clients to ensure that their experience is personalized and tailored to their needs. So whether you're in need of a new resume, a cover letter, a CV, or you want to optimize your LinkedIn profile, just work with a career coach, Devicor has you covered in all spaces. So go to devicor.com/birds to schedule a free 15-minute career coaching consultation and to receive an exclusive 15% discount on your next order. That's devicor.com/birds for a free 15-minute career coaching consultation and to get an exclusive 15% discount off your next order. All right, Adam, let us go ahead and start with the questions. Do you want to read the question number 1? Or do you want me to start reading the questions first? I could read the question first. I mean, I figured that.
My bad.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
My bad. Yeah, no, I might have had. I think I had my mute button off.
Can't have that.
Sorry. Wait, you did hear me before though. When I had it, I think you heard me before, right?
I did not. So.
No. But before.
Yeah. No, I mean the whole podcast has been fine up until this last 5 seconds.
Okay, yeah, my bad. Yeah. Sometimes because we both do. We use a mute button. So we don't have any background noise.
That's right.
And actually, a couple of people gave me that tip about a year and a half ago with the Yeti.
Right.
And I knew it was on there. I just forget because like with Sirius XM, I have a mute button on my equipment, which I don't. I might sneeze every once in a while. I'm a human being, but I rarely use it. I think I use it like 3 times a year. But thank you for the mute button. But anyway, we appreciate the help. But anyway. No, with Devicor, what I want to say is take advantage of that LinkedIn optimization. Really important if you're going to work. If you're going back to the workforce. My wife just actually went back to work. You know what? Now we mentioned this, I might as well have her look at it. Like Devicor. Might as well take advantage of the discount. Why not? Right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. What's our question number 1?
All right. So this is from our email, and we'll get to the Apple one. So this is from our friend Miguel Lara. Hey guys, great job as always. Thank you. Quick question. If you're the Eagles GM, Howie Roseman, who are you taking with the 15 and 18 selections? No linebacker since we know Howie isn't taking one, obviously. We all know that. I think my wife knows that.
No.
My mom is 94. I'm hoping he takes one in the 2nd or 3rd round. Number 1, Miguel, I don't see the 2nd round either. I talked about this the last show. There's no team in the National Football League who's more year to year at linebacker. They just. We could argue to the cows come home whether it's the right decision to do that. Joe Banner told us either last year or 2 years ago that, within their salary cap and their team building, there's a certain way they build their team. We all know that. Offensive, defensive lines. They just believe it in that way, and they're not going to put a lot in certain positions, and it's linebacker. But, Miguel, here's the thing, though. What is wrong with taking one in the 3rd round, as you say? Come on. I mean, Davion Taylor they took him where they took Geoff and I know this. We actually reported it. They didn't have anywhere close to a 3rd round grade on him. They just took him anywhere. So how about a guy who's got?
Because why not, right? Just take a linebacker who has twitchy and hope it works out.
I'll say this much on him on Davion Taylor. If he would stop getting hurt, he did show. So it was the calf strain. We were told he had an MCL sprain.
Yeah,
a pretty significant one in season. What else? Did he have something else? Something.
Yeah, he had it went from quad to calf.
What? Was it quad?
Well, that was the first thing that was the issue. I think the calf or the quad, and then it became knee. I don't know. His surgery was knee, was it not?
Yeah, MCL is what we were told. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's been all over the map there.
Although MCLs, right, all MCLs typically don't get repaired. There had to be something else going on with his knee, but nevertheless. So what would you do, Geoff? I'll throw it back to you. At 15, again, Miguel, we don't know who's going to be there. It's
right.
14 picking or 14 picks in front of the Eagles because they're. By the way, there are 8 teams who have multiple 1st round picks, and there are 8 teams who don't have a 1st round pick in this year's draft. How about that?
Right.
So what would you do?
So I've got 2 first-round picks. I know the Eagles are not in position to have luxury picks. I know they're not. But if I'm at 15, well, let me refocus that to 18. All right, 15. You're not going to get Sauce Gardner. You're probably not going to get Derek Stingley. So, I don't know how they have guys like McDuffie and Booth evaluated, if they see them yet as I don't know yet if they see them as really good first rounders. But if Jermaine Johnson is there, which I don't know he will be, I think that's a pretty good look for them right there. And look, I think I wouldn't be afraid to draft David Ojabo at 15 or 18.
Whoa.
I wouldn't be afraid, because we've talked about how they really don't have any defensive ends under contract past 2022.
Yep.
And so they need one, and he's good, and he'd probably be a top 15 prospect without the Achilles injury. You see guys making comebacks. I know he won't be able to play. Maybe you get him on the field in December, but the fact is that you don't draft a guy for what you'd like him to help out in year 1, but you're really hoping to get a guy by year 2, year 3 is going to be an impact player for you. And even if they draft a pass rusher in round 1, that guy's going to have to, obviously prove to be better than Derek Barnett and better than Hassan Reddick, who they have rushing the passer anyway. I mean, it's going to be hard to get in that 4-man. Their 4-man rotation for the pass rush, to me, is fairly set. I mean, you've got Sweat, you got Hargrave, you have Cox, and you have Reddick. Now, you'll be able to get Brandon Graham in there. You'll be able to get Derek Barnett in there. You'll be able to get Milton Williams in there. You'll be able to get a rookie in there. But unless that rookie's lights out, that's their 4-man rush. So, again, I don't mind taking David Ojabo for the promise of tomorrow. I know people are going to think about Sidney Jones. They're going to think about other guys who've been hurt. You can't let that influence your process. Someone's going to take this kid in the first round. We saw it with Jeffrey Simmons. We saw it with Caleb Farley. Somebody will take him. And why not have it be the Eagles if you had him evaluated as a top 10 to 15 pick?
Right. And with Jabo, see, if you compare him to Sidney Jones had an issue with confidence and carrying out assignments. There was stuff that no team knew that, you remember the New Orleans game when Sean Payton told Peter King they were going to go after him.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote in the Monday morning quarterback, and they go after him. He just was not very competitive. There's nothing in his background that people knew about this.
Right.
I can tell you about David Ojabo, just talking into him. He's an unbelievable kid, coachable, smart. He's a little raw. He has a long ways to go. He's not as advanced as his teammate Hutchinson or some other pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
But as you astutely said, it's not about this year. The only guy next in 23, Graham could be gone. Barnett could be gone. Although we'll see based on the structure. We'll see if they would move on from him, because it's friendly enough. The contract's friendly enough. If he just plays a little bit above average and stays healthy, there'd be a good reason to bring him back. But realistically, they'd be gone. Graham could be gone. Barnett could be gone. We know nothing about Teron Jackson, Malvo. There's just nobody there.
Right.
So I first said I wouldn't do it, Miguel. But you know what? At 18, if they keep it, or I'll even take it a step further, because we know that Roseman likes working the board, and they have 2 first-round picks, next year, and they have some other future picks through the trade with the Saints. I'm not opposed to trading down with 18.
Oh, not at all.
And look, this is 3 people now I've talked to. 2 agree that they don't see it as deep as maybe another personnel guy does. In the last show I talked about this other guy likes it 15 to 18. He thinks there's better depth than you think because of the offensive linemen. It's really good. There could be 3 offensive linemen in the top 10. You could see 5, 6 receivers go in the first round potentially. How some of the medicals work out.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's where I think teams differ. They may see Jamison Williams different than the other guys. They may see George Pickens different than the other teams. This is why the Eagles brought him in particular, partially because of the medical, to see where his knee is at. Though I asked Cosell last week, he said he only had 5 catches, but he looked fine. Don't forget his combine workout was really good, considering he had the ACL surgery the previous year. So George Pickens probably is going to go in the first round.
Yeah, we will see. I wouldn't shock me.
I think he will. Actually, I think I'd bet the house he goes in the first round.
So to answer the question totally,
Yeah.
some kind of pass rusher, Johnson, Ojabo, Karlaftis maybe, and then Treylon Burks. That's how I kind of see it. Dark horse, like, let's say all those guys are gone by 18 and they don't trade down, then you're looking at maybe a Tyler Linderbaum or a defensive tackle like a Perion Winfrey or a DeMarvin Leal. That's I know I said a lot of names there because I'm trying to say if one guy's gone, but that's how I see.
I would say corner, because they don't have 3 first-round picks now. It kind of changes the value.
Mm-hmm.
Corner is a major need. You mentioned earlier, we need to find out where they're at on Andrew Booth.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be there almost certainly at with one of those picks. Barring something unforeseen, if they don't move and they just stay there at 15 and 18,
mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe there's a corner they'd like for the second round. Whoever they draft a corner has to start. Like, that's enough of the patchwork with the veteran corners. Steven Nelson, good for him. He got a 2-year deal with Houston.
Mm-hmm. They
need someone who could run. They need someone right now at corner that they could depend on for the future. Get that guy now. So if it were up to me, I'm taking a corner. That's one of those 2 first-round picks. But it can't be a reach if both of the top corners are gone, Gardner then Stingley.
Mm-hmm.
As long as Booth is graded there, take him.
Okay. If he's graded, I agree with you. If he's graded there, I have a feeling they'll like him because he's a zone corner mostly, and he's strong and physical and will fit what Jonathan Gannon has seemingly looked for. You notice they brought in bigger, stronger corners to kind of like, as they do their dart throwing. But, the way they see that position, I have a feeling if they can't get Stingley or Sauce, they may say we can get a guy in the second round that we think is as good as or just close to who can start for us. He may not be as good as Booth, but he's only a little bit far behind and we can coach him up. So that I don't know that for a fact. It's just how I sense it.
Gotcha. All right. From Ross Monroe. So here's his message, then his question. So he said, quote, so I was having a look at where the Eagles would need to move up into the draft to get Gardner. The Panthers have the 6th pick, yes, and they don't have any second or third round picks. That's correct. And by the way, they don't need a corner. That helps. But anyway, he says, do you think if he's still there at 6 on at draft night, the Eagles would offer 15th overall, 3rd and a 5th, and maybe even 2 if it gets the job done? I would also say Dillard. And by the way, we were also told last year the Panthers had interest in Dillard.
I love this question.
Yeah, they called at the trade deadline, we're also told. So
yeah, I love this question. It's like the Ross has some kind of telekinesis because a couple of days ago I sent you a text. I'm like, it just seems so perfect.
I know
that Carolina needs a left tackle, and they called last year about Andre Dillard, and they're sitting there at 6 and don't need a corner. The Eagles should absolutely be in discussions with the Panthers about 15th overall, Andre Dillard, and then a 2nd or a 3rd, whatever the value chart says would get it done to get up to 6, because the Panthers, A, need a tackle, and then they can get one in Dillard. B, they'd still have a 1st-round pick, just down at 15. And then C, they would recover a pick that they've lost from, I guess, I forget what they give up to why they have no 2nd or 3rd, but maybe with Darnold or anything. But it just seems too perfect.
2nd, yeah.
I mean, it seems too perfect.
Yeah, look, to me, the Eagles, we know Dillard will never play unless Mailata gets hurt. I know it's a strong tackle draft from what we've heard. I don't know what I would call top heavy, but there could be 3 to 4 offensive linemen go in the first 12, and maybe 2 to 3 go in the top 10. Carolina, they can't line up today without a left tackle. They don't have one. My understanding is, though, they would go with Brady Christensen, who was a jack of all trades lineman. They stole in the 3rd or 4th round for BYU last year. He was terrific. He was a great find. I don't know if they thought he'd play as much as he did, but they'd rather not go with him. They like him. He's going to start somewhere, but their preference is that if he competes and wins a job. He was the 3rd rounder last year, number 70. They like him to win an offensive line job in the interior. Now, what they did last year, in the free agency, is they got an unbelievable bargain. 1 year, $2.5 million. With more upside for Bradley Bozeman, the former starting center for the Ravens, because he signed later. They made the trade for Austin Corbett with the Rams, who started in the Super Bowl. He's a good player. He's up for contract. And Pat Elflein's there. Taylor Moton's their franchise right tackle. So things are cooking now for them, but they don't have a left tackle.
Adam, we don't root. We're not like, we don't wave pom-poms for anybody. But every time I think about it, I am almost rooting for this because it just seems – it seems like it's just so naturally obvious of a great trade for both teams.
Yeah.
And like you always say, having the answers to the test. Sometimes a trade looks good, but you don't know how a team feels about a certain player. We don't
Maybe
know.
we should call
could
both
easily
teams.
say we don't know how the Panthers feel about Andre Dillard, but we
Yeah.
know that they at least
Yeah.
placed a phone call. Oh man, if the Eagles move up to 6 and we're able to get Sauce, I think so many Eagles fans would be so happy about it.
And they've got a good work relationship. I know through our sourcing last year around the draft that they talked several times. Panthers and Eagles, because the Eagles were checking in to see, and we know as they've went up trading up to get Smith. And what I was told then was, as long as if Horn happened to be off the board, they definitely would have looked to trade down. But Horn was their number one priority, and they got him. He looked great before he got hurt. He broke his foot, but their team is they cannot get there. They need a quarterback and a left tackle. I'm really interested to see how they value these quarterbacks, because other than Kenny Pickett, now Malik Willis is certainly a wild card, one of the wild cards for this draft, but they need an answer at quarterback. They can't have someone who's not ready to play.
Right.
To compete against Darnold. So they've got a lot of work to do.
Boy, could you imagine if they made the trade with the Eagles at 15? You know, they had their left tackle and they're happy with any cluster of players that might be there at 15 to take, and Pickett somehow falls into their lap there. That would be an ideal situation for them.
Well,
you have to think Matt Rule likes him a little bit. That's his guy, you know.
Well, he recruited him
right
to Temple before he left to Baylor.
Right.
Since you just brought this up, I do want to look at this real quick, the draft order, since we're having fun with this.
And by the way, 6, while you look, 6 is so important for the Eagles, right? Because the Giants, I believe, pick at 5 and 7.
Correct. Yes.
So here's what I do if I'm the Eagle, because the Giants could certainly use a corner, and especially if they wind up getting rid of Bradbury. I wait for the Giants to see what they do at 5. If they pick a defensive end there or something else, not Sauce, and Sauce there, then that's where I'm like calling Carolina. You've already had the discussions, Brian. Like, now we want to move up because we're not letting the Giants pick again at 7 with Sauce on the board. We're going right up. That's what I'm doing. I'm like Kevin Costner on in the movie, man. We're doing it.
Bradbury's contract's going to be very difficult to trade. It's pretty big. It's good.
Right.
I mean, I know he didn't play as well as he did 2 years ago, but anyway. So right now, the teams that need a cornerback in the top 10, Seattle, they lost DJ Reed to the Jets. They have 9. They have 2 picks. They have what picks do they have here?
Don't they have 7 and 9 or something like that? Or
Giants have 7. They have 9. They've got Seattle's got 9.
9 and 12.
Sounds. I know they have 2. Don't they have 2?
Yes, they do have 2.
Why am I not seeing this here? 9 from Denver in the Russell Wilson trade. I know they gave up one of them for the Jamal Adams trade. I actually have that information very quickly here. So the teams that have multiple first-round picks: Lions, Texans, Giants, Jets, Eagles, Saints, Packers, Chiefs. They do not. They only have one. So Seattle, that's the hot spot for corner. There's no question about it. So Detroit would be a hot spot for one. Instead of missing, I think Quentin Jammer would have been the second pick overall many years ago, not Joey Harrington, but someone played funny business with their draft board. Anyway, Houston could use a corner. The Jets could use an upgraded corner. In fact, I remember doing an interview for their team website at the combine that said that they should take one of their picks. Right. Carolina does not. The Giants, they're paying Adoree Jackson a lot of money. Darnay Holmes is their nickel. Bradbury, they're paying a lot of money. Aaron Robinson, they drafted in the 3rd round. Why do they have to draft a corner?
I was under the assumption they're going to wind up getting rid of Bradbury in some way. Maybe after the draft,
if they do, right?
First trade where the cap hit's not as bad, but
maybe. But I don't know why they, other than his salary is too big, why do they sour on him so badly? Jeez.
I agree with you. But, you never know how the new regimes look at players. But that's why I think at 5, they're probably – they got so many, they still have offensive line issues, even though they've worked to redo that. I mean, you probably could use a defensive line because Leonard Williams is their best defensive line. They're good interior, but they need like an edge guy. I know Olajari played all right for them, but
they need more pass rushers. No, you're absolutely right.
They need more pass rushers.
Absolutely. Under Wink Martindale, man, they're still running a 34, and he's super aggressive.
Right.
By the way, Bradbury's on the last year of his deal. 13.4 million. His cap number is a hideous 21.863 million. Good luck.
You know what? Post June 1st, if you got to trade, it won't be that bad. The cap is the Giants are going to wind up absorbing it more than the team that takes him on. Correct?
Yes, because of debt. Because they're exactly right.
Yeah. So it's really, listen, I don't even care. We should never care about that. Teams are showing you the last 3 years they'll take a massive cap hit if they're replacing that guy with a rookie. So
there's one certain GM I talked to within the last week who hates that kind of talk. He goes, I'm sick of these media people saying like we don't care about dead money. I said to this GM, I'm like, dude, it's not all the GMs people are saying. It's just some,
right?
Or like the cap's going to go up and up and up. And he goes, but you can't think that way. You can't just assume.
It's not all. It's the teams that are rebuilding and are starting anew are not afraid to shed the veteran. Of course, the Rams aren't doing it, right? They're figuring out ways to spread out money.
Not use first round picks.
Yeah. It's the Lions who are like, yeah, sure, we'll take this enormous cap hit and we'll, for trading Stafford because we're starting anew. Sure, we'll take Geoff with it. It's the Eagles after Carson Wentz. I mean, that's the teams that are doing it mostly.
Well, Atlanta. How about Atlanta? And Terry Fontenot, in his second year, he made it clear at the combine they were not opposed to taking a $40 million cap hit.
It's unbelievable anymore.
I cannot. I know our friend Andrew Brandt cringes. He cannot believe it. He just, Andrew's an old school guy, so he just won't accept it. It's funny. I don't blame him. And this GM I was talking to just cringes at the thought of taking on a lot of dead money. He just doesn't believe in it.
Well, I mean, you should theoretically cringe. If you're a good businessman or business person, you should cringe at the idea of a team wasting that much money on someone who's not even playing.
Cap space. It's not cash. It's cap space.
Right. But it's cash you've paid out already.
Right.
For a guy who is no longer on your team. So that is a colossal waste of money. Just because in the grand scheme of things, you can navigate around it and still put a team on the field doesn't make the concept of it for a business person any better. It's still tough to take.
Well, the thing is, though, with that, it all comes down to restructures and betting on the right players to extend or restructure.
Sure.
And what happened is in 2021, they had to get under the cap. They had to restructure. Ryan, they knew it was going to be a problem the year after that, and boy, did it become a problem. So,
all right, let's
there you go. This is good stuff.
Let's get on to the next one.
Yep. Okay. Hang on a second. Okay. So Ross, that's kind of where we see it. Great question. And then you open a can of worms.
Yeah.
From Apple. Okay, Apple. Thank you for saying we're the best Eagles podcast. From Alexis. You guys should do a top 20 mock draft with all the information you guys get around the league. You can do it every week until the draft. Love you guys. Keep it up, Alex. Guess what? We're doing it. What, this Sunday or
Monday morning? Next Monday morning.
You got it.
The Monday before the draft will be our annual ITB mock draft, NFL mock draft. Adam, me, and Andrew DeCecco. Yeah.
Just don't grade us and try to see how many we get right.
Please do not.
I know. From Apple, the case of the quarterbacks. From LeBron James with like 10 S's. With the Eagles not showing heavy interest in FA corners. Yeah, you're right. And possibly drafting one. Seems that they're just throwing darts on the board. Yeah, boy, where have you heard that, LeBron James?
Yeah.
James. Joe Banner. And hoping one sticks, kind of how they did the 2020 draft with 3 receivers. By trading for Tay Gowan, Kerry Vincent Jr., and plus drafting Zach McPherson. Unbelievable. Once again try to draft a guy, but do you think that they believe they have a player in house already to make that year 1-2 leap, or those depth bodies to battle for backup roles? They still like Zach McPherson, but he was the 4th round pick. But to answer your question, I've not heard that they believe any of these guys are really going to start. It's one thing to compete for a role, and Sirianni is going to be Mr. Positive about everybody. He could be positive about a 6-string running back, and that's fine. That's his deal. But the reality is, no one who knows these players, who's graded these players, thinks that these guys are starting quality.
Correct.
Until they prove otherwise. They just haven't done that yet. They didn't do it with the teams they were with before. And until they do, they need a starting corner on the outside, and they actually need 2, quite frankly.
One thing I can tell you that they've liked about Zach McPherson is he's a tough player. He's a hard-nosed player. He's physical, and he tackles well, which, some people, we've seen cornerbacks who just absolutely can't or won't tackle. So they like that. The only issue is that he's not a linebacker. He's a cornerback. And when the things you want to hear about a team liking its corner is the ability to run down the field and cover anybody and make contested pass breakups and things like that. And again, he hasn't played enough to be able to show that he can or can't do that. So there's just a lot of I don't know involved with Zach McPherson right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's either going to be a third or fourth corner. That's kind of what I think, unless maybe he could blow it up in training camp and prove people wrong. But
right,
I know in our gathering information on him after the draft to learn more about him, the more often than not, it was like, I'd like the player, but he's more of a 3 than a 2, and that's why he's a 4th round pick. By the way, I mean, guys in the 4th round are low end starters, high end backups. That's the way the league sees it at every position. So. All right, another one question. Love the show. Can't miss an episode from Harper's Island. Thank you. Question: do you guys believe the Eagles have any interest in Anthony Barr? This is a good one. Minnesota did not want him back at last check because they changed their scheme. They were running 34 and I don't know, decades. Funny thing, Harper's Island, about this question. The belief around the league was he'd be a great 34 outside linebacker because he was a good pass rusher at UCLA, but they made him a coverage linebacker. He was one of the best grading wise against tight ends for years.
I would say though a coverage linebacker who they did like to blitz a lot. You know, Zimmer would blitz his linebackers more. A little bit, most.
Right?
Yeah.
But as far as a true pass rusher, they've not really used him like that.
Right, not
surprisingly.
Rusher. Yeah.
So to finish the question off, he would be able to be a backup to Reddick and play the coverage part of the Sam. That absolutely, you nail it in nickel. Oh, to against tight ends, they've been throughout the last couple of decades. The Eagles have been one of the worst against tight ends. They had a couple years where they were better. I would subtract this stuff. And my buddy John Hansen from fantasypoints.com, he had a running joke when the late Jim Johnson was the Eagles defensive coordinator. As great as Jim Johnson was, he could put his kids through college with how bad they covered tight ends. Because John would always predict, all right, this guy's going to kill the Eagles this week. And they would. And it's still been like that off and on with Jim Schwartz and now with Gannon. But it's actually a good one. It wouldn't surprise me because of Gannon and his ability to cover. That's actually a great point you make. I hadn't thought of that one. We briefly discussed it prior to free agency, but we haven't discussed it since then. And then also he asks, and do you guys believe the Eagles have any interest in Kyle Fuller? I know there's some interest in years back. Yeah, actually, I reported this 4 years ago. I don't know, whenever it was actually the Eagles called them or talked to them at the trade deadline when they declined his 5th-year option. That they wound up extending his contract. Later, they called and they never made an offer, I was told, but they checked into it because Fuller was a disappointment as a former first-round pick. And then he really came on after he didn't get the 5th-year option, and he's a good player. I know there's so you know what, that would be a good one if a fallback option. By the way, he's better than Steven Nelson. It just is.
Oh yeah, I would agree. I would think that the Eagles, if they have interest in these guys, it would be rekindled after the draft. If Hassan Reddick were to get hurt, I think what they would do is fill the position, say, with either Patrick Johnson or perhaps a rookie that they draft to just for first and second down. You're the 5th person on the line. You help stop the run. And then when you go into nickel, when you want to rush the passer, they don't need Anthony Barr, to be honest with you, as a backup to anybody for that, because they've already got Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett, Brandon Graham, a rookie, Milton Wood. I just went through. They have like 6 or 7 guys that can rush the passer. So, and 4 from the edge. So you may not love all of them, but you're not going to love Anthony Barr as an edge rusher either at this stage of his career, because, you know, it's not like he's going to get you 8 to 10 sacks or anything like that.
No, he's not. He's just a coverage
they've got guys
player
to rush the passer on 3rd down already, and they're probably going to draft 1 and maybe 2 coming up. So I don't really think that I see much more of a need to bring in Kyle Fuller, even if you do draft a corner, because you may not know if that corner is going to be ready or not, than I do Anthony Barr.
He is. I remember at the time I'd asked about Fuller. I mean, he's only 30. He just turned 30. I thought he was older than that. One of the Fuller brothers. So that would be a good one. Now, again, he was brought into Denver because of Vic Fangio. Fangio's no longer there. Fuller's a free agent. That's a good one, man. That's a good job by you to bring that name up. We'll look into it. They're both free agents.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, they obviously have to nail the draft. I know that some people think it was a fallacy they got in the playoffs because of the schedule. It was so easy for them. It's not nice to say that, but the fact is they didn't have a very tough schedule.
Yeah.
But I believe this team can make it. I mean, they have to nail these. If they keep the first two, if the 5 picks they have the first 3 rounds, if they keep all of them, these guys play early on, and at least 2 or 3 of them are really good. Now we're cooking with oil. Now we're saying, okay, now they're going to be able to take a big jump. That's the only way this team could take a jump this season.
Right.
Is these guys, move on and play well.
All right. That was a great set of questions. Really enjoyed answering them. Keep sending them to us, insidethebirds@gmail.com. 5-star review on Apple, like we had today. We answered a bunch of those. We will definitely answer a question there. Facebook community group Inside the Birds on Facebook. Do that. Twitter as well. Ask ITB hashtag. We will continue to do this leading up to and after the draft. So thanks everybody for all the great questions that's were submitted. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks as always to our producer Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube. It's called Sports Talk with Broads, and his website is broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.